What's going on, MSFers? Duelam here, and today we're going to be breaking down the developer call that we just had with RJ, the general manager of Marvel Strike Force, to answer some much needed questions that we've been having for quite a while and that the community has been having. And first up on the agenda is going to be Danger Room. So right now we do have Danger Room running with the Superior 6, and it just kicked off. And honestly, I'm really liking Danger Room. I think it's a fun game mode. I think the problem is they've been shoving it down our throats lately, and it's becoming a little bit stale, which is unfortunate. So there were some ways that they talked about really spicing it up. A lot of the nodes have become repetitive as well because they're trying to avoid the nodes being too hard, like when we have, you know, Thanos endgames on there and stuff like that. They have been doing a good job with the boss nodes being different every single time, fitting the theme. Obviously, this boss node has a lot of spiders on it. Professor X is there as well, things like that. They also talked about maybe running Danger Room for longer periods of time, so having it running for like a month so that somebody can do it whenever they have time to do it, and they're not really confined to a week at a time or a couple days at a time, whatever it is. And potentially just leaving it open for longer so that it's pretty much always running, so it's always an option for something to play. And I think that would be a pretty cool idea. I do enjoy that. They didn't talk about anything about the reward structure. Nobody mentioned anything about that, so I think the rewards are fine where they're at. Same thing with the leaderboards. They didn't talk anything about that at all. And I'm kind of fine with it. I know this is more just for gameplay, and I kind of like it, honestly. I think it's still fun. Also, this iteration of Danger Room has been extremely fun and is lasting for another 12 days. It's open for 2 weeks total, so absolutely amazing. I love it. I'm having a blast with it. Let me know what you guys think about that. Next up, we have the topic of Null, and he has been a pretty hot topic lately, especially since we got our last iteration of Battle World. The previous one that we just had double the shards for Null, which kind of points to Null no longer being the Battle World boss. And we asked about this, and we asked when the Null shard availability is going to be happening and how it's going to be happening. And he was kind of ambiguous about it, but did give an answer as to kind of wanting to keep the thematic around Null and not just throwing him into a store somewhere, kind of like what I talked about in previous videos, where I don't want him just like thrown into a store and just kind of forgotten about and just move on and farm him every day. They want to keep the thematic of like actually having a boss fight, and what he talked about was potentially having the choice between fighting Sentry or fighting Null, depending on where you are in the game. Now, I hope that doesn't really translate to like the entire Alliance needs to choose to fight Null, or the entire Alliance needs to fight Sentry, and then the Alliance is now being held back. I hope it's kind of like an individual raid difficulty slider where it comes from you could choose to beat Null if you still need Null shards, or you can choose to go for Sentry. I think that would be really cool. What I would really ideally like is that you're able to just pursue Null on your own as a solo adventure now, and they keep Battle World 2 as something separate, and they make Null a permanent fixture of the game, such as like the Apoc Saga, Professor X Saga, stuff like that. And you could just work on it on your own, separate from your Alliance, so you don't have to pull anybody back, or you don't have to sacrifice Sentry shards to go for Null because you missed out or you weren't around for it, newer player wasn't able to get it done, whatever that is. They also talked about Cosmic Crucible updates, and this is something that is very near and dear to my heart because you guys know me. I love Cosmic Crucible. I have a blast with this game mode. This is what really got me started in wanting to make content and really getting in there and making videos and making a fool of myself in the public setting, which I always do anyway. We talked about general improvements such as potentially adding rooms, so more defense rooms for higher leagues. They said that might be something they want to do in the future, but they just don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the employee base, essentially, to be able to focus on that right now. They are focusing on other more pressing matters. They did not go into details on what those pressing matters were. We talked about potentially Gear Tier 20 being put in there as more as of an incentive in the reward structure to make us actually want to, you know, push these rewards, because right now Dark Diamond credits kind of meh. This gold is useless, frankly. And then even here, the training materials, kind of meh. And then also the diamond orbs, the master diamond orbs are just lackluster. They're just non-existent right now. I'm hoping that maybe if there is an update to diamonds, that this will kind of help the problem and give access to diamonds 4 and 5, if that's going to end up coming, or 6 and 7, whatever the next progression system is in the diamond form. I hope that this is a good way to get those, because that would give people a big reason to actually want to push these. And I think that would be very, very nice. They also talked about potentially putting a character back in here as well. Remember when Quicksilver was released through Cosmic Crucible, through the rank rewards here? I think Grandmaster got like 100 shards every week, and then it scaled down from there. And I think that would really entice people to want to do better, especially if it's a really good character. So they did kind of toy around with that idea as a pretty much a free-to-play unlock, just unlocking it from Cosmic Crucible and doing well and being high in the brackets. And then the last thing they talked about was Ultimate 32 and your rank changing, right? That's something that has been a big topic about Ultimate 32 and the ranks being affected by Ultimate 32. That is something that they are absolutely working on, and their goal is to not run another U32 unless they have the ability to not let it affect your ranking here. So your Tribunal rating will stay the same, that nice 1922, literally at the top of my head right there. It looks like part of my hat, which is great. It's like the little propeller for the hat, right? And I think that's awesome, because they don't need to affect the ranking, because I know a lot of people who love Crucible, and then they get to U32, and then they're like, wow, I just lost all my progress from an entire season in 1 week. That sucks. And I understand that, absolutely, especially because U32, you definitely face some people that are way above you because the brackets are so much bigger. So even when I was trying and I was like top 100, top 150, I was facing like people in the top 20, top 30 and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, Lord, get away from me. Stay away from me. I hope I never match up with you. So that was a big thing that people do not like. So Purple ISO and Purple ISO 4 and Purple ISO 5 stores. So they did say it's not going to be coming to this chapter store here. So it will not be coming to chapter 2 store. It will not be. So don't hoard your currency, which was a big question I had, and I talked about it with Valley Flying as well on our video, that if we could hoard antimatter, if they're going to throw it into here and we could start farming it here early, that would be absolutely insane. But they said, no, it is not going into the chapter currency store, and it might end up going into chapter 3, but it is not going into chapter 2. So that is not happening at all. Now, a little bit of a side note that we talked about as well when it came to Purple ISO. Let me pull this up. There it is. When it came to Purple ISO. So there was some interesting notes that came from the call that the player's voice had with RJ, and then that we had with RJ as well. And that Overpowered is kind of not coming with Purple ISO 4 and Purple ISO 5. They are putting a halt to it, which makes more sense now looking at this and seeing 30% damage, 35% damage, 40% damage. These things are very interesting because that is a little bit less impactful compared to Overpowered, but this is still essentially Overpowered, right? Because Overpowered is 50% damage. 40% damage from Skirmisher is massive. So this is almost compensating for the lack of Overpowered from Purple ISO 4 and Purple ISO 5. Now, we did ask if Overpowered was not going to be continued anymore, and he did not give a definitive answer on that. He was kind of here or there. He was like, listen, we potentially want to do it. We're not sure. We don't know the path forward to that. That's going to be best for the game. But right now, we are going to be sticking with Purple ISO 4 and Purple ISO 5, giving those extra bonuses and not giving Overpowered level 12. So Purple ISO will not be giving Purple ISO 5 will not be giving Overpowered level 12, which is absolutely massive. Crazy information that we got from this regarding that. We've got Annihilus unlock method and game mode. Very, very excited for this. He didn't talk about too much about the release method, but he did say that it was going to be more Dark Dimension style than it was for the Professor X Saga. He did say that the Professor X Saga was kind of lackluster for him, and I agree. The Professor X Saga just was not very fun, and I feel like a lot of people did not enjoy it. I loved it because I was an idiot and took really stupid characters like Ravager, Stitcher, Shield Trooper, Big Time Spider-Man before the rework, Madeline Pryor before the rework, just took terrible characters and really made it hard on myself. So I really like that they acknowledged that it did not land the way they wanted it to, because you just built the most meta tunes, the tunes that they recommended, and it was just an auto fest, which is not fun at all. I did not think that was cool. I did not think that was inventive. I didn't think it was as fun as like a Dark Dimension. So very, very awesome there. We also have the game modes Annihilus is going to be good for. True plug and play, right? Just a mythic character, just like most of the other mythic characters are. We see here, let's look at the mythic list here, right? True plug and play. We got Mephisto, Odin, Professor X. Ultimus, a lot less. Obviously, one of those older mythics that I really hope some of these get some love. I really hope everybody on this list eventually looks badass and is really amazing, especially with the Doom movie coming out. I hope they don't rework. I hope they rework Doom and they don't just give us a new version. Ultron needs some love. Hasn't gotten love in multiple years since Masters of Evil. Super Skrull, still pretty solid, honestly. He'd be insane with a stat bump, though, let me tell you. Same thing with Dormammu. Imagine Dormammu with a stat bump. He'd be nuts. So I really hope this mythic roster does get fulfilled with some reworks as well, because I feel like a character having the mythic tag and just being is really, really odd for new mid-game players who are chasing these insane characters like Mephisto, Odin, Professor X, Apocalypse, Dorm, Super Skrull, and then you have Kestrel, Ultimus, Doom, Ultron, and it just doesn't fit the thematic. It's very odd, and I really, really don't like that at all. We also talked about Omega raids as well. The new raids that we had, there was supposed to be an Omega raid, Annihilation Omega, to come with this. And they did say it is ready to go, essentially. Ready to just click the button and it turns on. But they definitely took some feedback that we brought to them regarding the reward system and how it wasn't that impactful going to the Omega raids, as well as having that individual raid difficulty slider on the Annihilation raids that we have now, which is great, especially because they are forcing us to use the newest raid team in this raid at the higher difficulties, right? So we definitely gave them good feedback on that, and they said, hey, we're going to put a hold to this for right now, but essentially it's ready to go. It's there. We also asked about the Blastaar event, and we were curious about how they felt it landed and what they felt like worked well and what they felt like did not work well. So they said that this was obviously the first time that they had the leaderboards here and giving extra yellow stars as well, which I thought this added another layer of complexity to this and made people actually want to push for this, which I think was great. It gave people an incentive to use their roster to the fullest, and I had so much fun with this. I put out a guide just like I said I would. Seems like a lot of you guys were having fun with the guide. Some people were having some trouble, obviously, because it was difficult content. But the best part about this is that it is difficult content, but it was difficult content that was also optional. If you wanted to push and get these extra shards, like I have a 6-5 Blastaar right now, or you wanted to go for the 7-7, you had that option too. But you're also still guaranteed to get a 7 yellow, 7 red by the end of this chapter. And I think that's awesome. And I think finding that balance between the two was really great. Now, we did have some other envoys chime in and say, hey, listen, all I've heard is negative feedback about this, because people are like, hey, listen, I spent a lot of money on this, and now my team, I still have to like meticulously go through this event, and I still have to count turns and all that kind of stuff. And I want to essentially pay for the luxury of not having to do that. And I kind of understand where you're coming from there, but like, you also need to earn things in Marvel Strike Force. You can't just be handed things because you swiped your credit card, especially when you're already going to be giving it to you for free. If you really want it early like this, then you should have to work for it a little bit. You shouldn't just expect everything because you swiped your card. So I don't really like that argument too much, but I understand what people are coming from. It's hard to find that balance of counting turns, because I do think that level of extreme is terrible, and we should never have to count turns to really min-max the leaderboard event, which it looks like some people did end up doing. They did have to kind of count turns when it comes to this pack here. 41,290, 40,000, 39,000. This is a couple turns difference here. So I do agree with that, but I don't think people should just be handed the newest thing just because they spent. I think they should actually have to earn it as well with some gameplay, especially when it comes to a legendary character. So that's my thoughts on that. When it came to the Secret Warriors and Infestation rework expectations, they said They were okay in the happy realm when it came to how the reworks landed. They weren't the happiest with how Big Time Spider-Man looks in game now at 2 million power. This looks stupid, honestly, especially that he's higher power than Odin. Even at 3 diamonds, he's higher power than Odin, higher power than Mephisto. Havoc he's like 350,000 power higher than anybody else on your roster, except for Odin. I think he's in like the 1.8 millions, I think, or somewhere around there. So I think that just looks foolish. So it's getting a little bit exacerbated with the stats and the power numbers and stuff like that. And he did talk about kind of packing them down a little bit to make them less large and just stupid looking, because it's really getting to that point, like a 2 million power toon. That's, I don't know, it's going to get kind of dumb kind of quick. And then the last thing we talked about was going to be war. War twice per week and a new war structure. So they did talk about war as twice per week and staying that way, just to limit the amount of involvement it takes from the top ends who have spreadsheets. Every attack is pretty much choreographed by the war leader of the alliance and all that kind of stuff. And they also talked about the new war structure being implemented relatively soon. Obviously, envoys are going to test that first, and then the new war structure will be rolled out to the general population as well, so that we can really see what war can be, because it is something they have been working on for an extremely long time. And I'm very interested to see how the community receives it as well, and what they enjoy about it and what they don't as well. So I'm very curious to see that. So that's going to be it from the call. A lot of information, Danger Room updates, Null Shard accessibility, Cosmic Crucible, Purple ISO 4 and 5, especially not affecting Overpowered. Overpowered 12 is not coming. Also, update on Omega raids, Blastaar invasion, how they thought that landed. A lot of information. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. And until next time, this has been Duelim. Later, MSFers.